Welcome. I want to welcome you to another episode of the Unpopular Podcast. It's your boy Jalen, man. It's episode 37, man. 37. Ah, hey, man. 37 episodes. I appreciate you guys for rocking with me, man. You know, how last week was a heavy week with a lot of stuff. This week, not too much stuff happened. There was a big event, I guess, but not too much stuff happened. But today, I have the host of the Curry in the Pot, Mike Curry, on as a guest, and we had a discussion. We'll talk about it, but again, I want to welcome you guys to another episode of the Unpopular Podcast. It's your boy Jalen, and Antonio Brown got signed, and it's funny. So he got signed. Well, a trade. On the ticker or ESPN ticker, it said he got traded to the Bills. And I'm like, damn, bro, that sucks. I mean, you're going to get money, but the Bills? You go from the Steelers to the Bills? About a good 15 minutes later, it was like, nah, chill out. That's not accurate. Yeah, he wasn't having none of that. So that deal fell through. It sucks that the Redskins were in play, but in Redskins fashion, ain't nothing happened. But Antonio Brown then came out and said fake news. I ain't going to no Bills, and then the trade fell through. And then about 24 hours later, boom, he gets traded to the Oakland Raiders. And I put on Twitter, hey man, AB might lead the league in receptions and touchdowns, while the Raiders go 3-13. So I don't know, the Raiders. He got money. Of course, he wanted money. He got money. And watch out for the Raiders getting Le'Veon Bell too. That's kind of in the winds, or that's kind of in play right now. But you go from Amari Cooper to AB. While Amari Cooper is, I think, 6 years younger than AB. AB is still the top, if not one of the top wide receivers in the league. And, it's funny. I saw Damian Woody was talking about it. A lot of people, and I know, look, I struggled with this at first as a sports fan. I'm like, bro, wouldn't everybody try to play for a championship? But Damian Woody said something, or he said his man said something to him that was profound. He was like, one of those rings don't pay for any of my bills. And I'm like, yeah, that's true. Some people, as great as they are, their main goal is to get as much money as possible and to provide for their family. And people can't get mad at that. Hell, KD even came out and said, at least this next deal, he wants to make as much money as possible. As a competitor stepping on the floor, I want to win all the time. And I'm pretty sure football players and basketball players or any professional athletes or any competitors, they just want to win. But at the end of the day, Jay Williams said this too on Saturday. He was like, senior day is so important because a lot of seniors, if they go to the league, this is the last time that basketball is their number one focus. You go to the league and it's a business. You have to worry about your future. And that's what AB did. AB bet on himself, I guess. I mean, he's still making money. He's making a lot of money. He's still one of the top receivers in the league. Is he going to win at the rate with Oakland that he did with Pittsburgh? I don't believe so. But, I mean, he took control and he wanted to get out of one situation and go to another one. Whether that's better or not, that's to be seen. But, Antonio Brown is now Oakland Raider. Oakland Raiders still have to shore up that defense. That defense is horrendous. But at least they got a cornerstone wide receiver and maybe a cornerstone quarterback in Derek Carr. The only thing is, of course, AB's age. But, again, he's still the top, if not one of the top, wide receivers in the league. So, Antonio Brown went to he went to the Raiders. The Raiders. That was yeah. That was huge. That was huge. And now people ask, will this is all right. How am I gonna say this is big in a lot of ways because as you're seeing, a lot of players are taking control of their narrative. Hell, look at homie. What's his name? Homie from the Cowboys. I think Irving. I'm looking it up. Look at homie from the Cowboys that pretty much quit because that's another thing. You know what? We'll stay on that. We'll get back to that. But players are starting to take control, and we've been on this a couple of podcasts now. The players are starting to take control of their situations. We've seen time and time again that the leagues or the owners have the final say so, which they still do, but players are now, and it's not just NBA. Players all over, hell, you see Bryce Harper, Manny Machado, you see Le'Veon Bell, you see Antonio Brown. Top players are starting to really demand more respect and starting to control the way that not only they're covered, but the way that the team they go to, how much money they want. Hell, you look at AB. They're still, or AD. There's still money on his contract, and yet he's about to be out of New Orleans. It's it's crazy, but it's where I think they're making steps to be better. Everybody wants to say they control what they can control, and while you still have owners and you still have GMs and everything, as a player, you draw the most revenue. Nobody's going to the game to see Bruce Allen. Nobody's going to the game to see Robert Kraft. They're going to games to see Tom Brady, to see Aaron Rodgers, to see Antonio Brown, to see Le'Veon Bell, to see Saquon Barkley, to see Odell Beckham, to see LeBron, to see Steph, KD, Anthony Davis. They're going to see the players, so the players are starting to understand that. And the players are starting to get to a point where it's like, you know what? I'm controlling this. I'm going to do what we're going to do. I'm going to do what I want to do. While I can't control exactly where I get traded to, I'm going to control where I go free agency, and I'm going to make it known I don't want to be here. Again, we've been on this wave for a while now on the podcast, but as you've seen, Anthony Davis, Antonio Brown, LeBron James to a certain extent, Le'Veon Bell, players are starting to take control. And while the Oakland Raiders is not a number one franchise right now, at least, and the Steelers might be a better franchise at the moment than than Oakland, Antonio Brown controlled the terms and controlled and did what he had to do. And now he's an Oakland Raider, making as much money as he wants. They're probably going to restructure his deal. And now Oakland's better. You can argue if Antonio Brown's in a better situation. And that's how it is. That is how it is. And speaking of control, another thing that happened this week was Cowboys David Irving quits the NFL over weed policy. I've said this on the podcast and I've said this off wax, but I don't smoke. I don't smoke at all. I don't smoke weed. I don't smoke cigarettes. I don't smoke blacks. I don't smoke nothing. But I can't get mad or I can't judge nobody for doing what they want to do. I understand in principle why the NFL wants to or has a ban on marijuana. I understand. I believe there's something in the actual marijuana that's on the banned substance list. I don't know. But I do understand why it's a ban. I mean, it's still a drug, quote unquote. And I also understand why players wanted to come off the banned substance list. I understand why players do it. A lot of players have come out, both basketball and football, and said that marijuana helps them recover faster than a lot of drugs that the league give them. And I'm pretty much focusing primarily on the NFL. The NFL, you get pumped up with drugs week after week, drugs that they give you. And as we've seen, a lot of these drugs have negative side effects down the road. While currently it'll help take the pain away, it'll numb you so you can still go out and play. Down the road, you have CT issues, you have memory loss issues, you have joint issues, you have body issues. You just have issues going down the road due to these drugs. And again, I understand why NFL players want marijuana to be legal. Because like David Irving, like players like Ricky Williams, they see the benefits in weed. The benefits in, okay, it helps me recover faster and a lot less damaging down the road than all these other drugs. But then yet you want to ban it. And I also think the NFL, it's like a conspiracy type thing. I also think the NFL bans it due to the fact that they can't control that market. You remember when players were there was a wave when players were customizing their cleats during the game. Now, of course, you can wear whatever cleats you want before the game, but remember when cleats were getting customized during the game, and the NFL put a stop to that until they controlled that, and now I believe there's like maybe a week or a month where you can wear whatever cleats you want because all the proceeds go to like the Wounded Warriors Foundation or something, or the NFL gets a lot of those proceeds. You see, I've talked about this before. There is a reason why the NFL and the NBA are the only two sports that have salary caps. The NFL and the NBA are the only two sports, mainly the NFL, where they are so strict with the weed or substance abuse policy that you can get banned. You can get banned. Hell, look at O.J. Mayo. Look at David Irving. David Irving's been suspended so many times. Look at Martavius Bryant. There's a reason for this. There's a reason why the two sports that's predominantly controlled by African Americans, predominantly, not even controlled, because it's not controlled by African, predominantly took in the NFL and NBA, the best players, the faces of these leagues are African American. As in, you look at top to bottom, the best players, 99%, maybe 95%, are African Americans. Take out Tom Brady, take out Aaron Rodgers. The top 10, arguably, NFL players are African American. The top, in fact, I don't know how far down I can go before I do the best Caucasian player in the NBA. And I'm not saying this is not a race war. I'm not saying that Caucasians aren't good at football or aren't good at sports, but there is a strict correlation between the two sports that are predominantly run by or controlled by African Americans, or predominantly taken over by African Americans, are the only two sports that, one, have a strict substance abuse policy, and it's not like steroids or anything. Now, of course, I get steroids, but weed policy and salary caps. The only two sports. Yes, there's a policy in hockey, but hockey has a cocaine problem. You never hear about someone getting suspended from cocaine use, but hockey has a serious cocaine problem. Look it up. Baseball still has a steroids problem, yet you don't hear too much about it anymore, even though it's still running rampant. Maybe not as much as the Roger Clemens days, but it still has a steroids problem. But when you look at it, cocaine or weed, steroids or weed. Again, I don't smoke, and I don't do drugs at all. I don't drink. I don't do none of that. But I understand, especially NFL. The NFL is a tough sport, man. It's a physical sport. It's a tough sport. And I understand as an NFL player, you would do whatever you need to do to get 100%, to get back to 100%, or as close to 100% as possible, because I understand that this feeds your family. So, David Irving, there's a deeper underlining problem to this. No, I don't think David Irving should have quit the NFL for smoking. But he's shining a light on something a lot more serious. Is that the sports that are predominantly controlled by African Americans are the strictest sports in the world, and the two most popular sports. LeBron James can't go anywhere in this world without being recognized. Tom Brady can't go anywhere in this world and not be recognized. And he wears helmets. Steph Curry can't go anywhere. Yet those are the two sports that, one, have a salary cap, which means you can limit how much you pay somebody for their services, and also have a strict drug policy. Yeah, those are, especially football, is the most physically taxing sport. It's crazy, man. It's crazy, but I see it. I can see it. I see it. It's March. We're flipping the script. We're gonna be cool. It's March, and March Madness is coming. My North Carolina Tar Heels beat Duke again this for the season sweep. And, of course, Zion didn't play, but you still have, I understand he's probably the number one draft pick, but you still have two more top 5 draft picks, and you can't beat North Carolina. And I'm a North Carolina fan, but the others, Zion didn't play. You still have R.J. Barrett, who's more than likely going to go second, and you have Cam Reddish, who's more than likely going to go either third, fourth, or fifth. Not to mention Trey Jones, who's going to go in the top 10. So miss me with all that. Oh, Duke. I mean, again, I understand Duke needs Zion, but miss me with all that. Oh, man, Duke can't do nothing without Zion. Duke is trash without Zion. I told in my last podcast, maybe you should look at R.J. Barrett going number 1 in the draft, because he's balling right now. And that also goes to the fact that R.J. Barrett and Cam Reddish was torching North Carolina. It's just North Carolina had, Kobe White was playing great. Cameron Johnson was playing great. Luke May was playing physical. North Carolina won how North Carolina wins now. North Carolina was mainly a team that would destroy you down low. You look at Rasheed Wallace, Tyler Hansbrough, Kennedy Meeks, players like that. They would body you down low, and we don't have the size like that. So now we shoot. We have Cameron Johnson, Kobe White, Luke May, Kenny Williams, Nazir Little to a certain extent. So yeah, I just had to give a shout out to North Carolina. And tune in next week. Next week I'm gonna have NCAA special because right now we're in tournament time. We are, the ACC tournament starting this week. All the tournaments are starting. So come next week or come next Monday, more than likely we would know the seedings or who's going to the tournament, and who's not. I'm going to talk about my sleepers. I'm going to break down who I think can win. I'm not going to go a whole bracket because that's a lot of freaking teams, but I'm going to highlight some teams that I think can win. Some sleep. Like I said, I'm going to have a college NCAA March Madness special. So stay tuned for that for next week. Is there anything else I want before we get to the unpopular topic of the week? I don't think so. Man, let's get to the unpopular topic of the week.
Welcome to the
Unpopular Opinions.
Unpopular opinions.
Have unpopular opinions.
Unpopular opinions.
Okay, so what's an unpopular opinion?
Unpopular opinions.
To utter such blasphemy. He's got the nerve, the audacity, the unmitigated gall to echo such blasphemous nonsense. Just blasphemy.
So I was watching The Herd, and Doug Gottlieb was filling in for Colin Cowherd, and he was talking about trades that failed that would have shaped the league. And it got me thinking, there's a lot of trades that failed and didn't fall. Well, failed and did go through that changed the league. Now, some of these are huge. Some of these aren't as big as others, but every trade or non-trade that I talked about or I'm going to talk about shaped the way that we look at the NBA today. And I didn't want to talk about this alone. So what I did was I invited my man's Mike Curry from the Curryinthepotpost podcast to the Unpopular podcast to talk about this topic. Mike is a huge sports fan, man. I'm gonna put his information in the description, but yeah, man. Me and him have a great conversation about just how the NBA would look if one or two of these trades would have went down. So without further ado, here you go.
Live. Oh wait, that's wrong one. All right. All right, how's everybody doing, man? I wanna welcome a special guest, man. I wanna welcome a man that's been grinding in this sports world, a man that has a podcast on his own, the Curry in the Pot host, Mr. Mike Curry. How you doing, bro?
What's going on, man? I'm doing pretty good, man. I'm battling a little cold, but I don't never got enough time to talk sports with my boy, so I gotta do it, bro. Cold not gonna stop us.
Yeah, man, this weather been crazy. It was like snowing one day, the next day was 60 degrees. Now it's like 40.
Like,
I don't know what they doing with the temperature, but they need to chill out. But I do appreciate you being here with me, man. I've been on your podcast a couple times, so this is definitely well overdue. Today, I had an idea, and it was kind of helped with something. I was watching the Herd with it's Colin Cowherd, but Doug Gottlieb was he was standing in, and he said I wonder about all the failed trades that could have shaped the league, the NBA. Of course, there's a lot of trades in the NFL we could talk about. We're just gonna talk about NBA because I think me and you are pretty well versed in NBA, and we're just gonna have a conversation, man. Again, I want to thank everybody for listening. This is the Unpopular Podcast. This is your boy Jalen with a special guest, Mike Curry, the host of the Curry in the Pot podcast. And let's just start it off because I know I'm gonna get this out the way because I already know this is about to be a fun topic. So, for all the people that know Kobe's a great player. In fact, Kobe, we'll say that. But back in 2007, right? Kobe demanded, on the Stephen A. Smith show, by the way, Kobe demanded a trade to the Bulls. And it's funny because we're going to talk about a couple trades, of course, and a lot of these trades that did or did not happen because of stupidity on somebody else's part. Now, in hindsight, no, ain't no hindsight about this. Kobe, back in 2007, Kobe, and you can attest to this, Mike. Kobe he had 3 rings at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Now, yes, Shaq left, but he was still dropping buckets like it was nobody's business. I mean, Kobe is, to me, the top 2 greatest scorers of all time. And that didn't change in 2007. The only change was the Lakers sucked back in 2007. I think ain't that the Smush Parker days and the
Oh
Kwame
yeah,
Brown days?
yes, bro, yes.
So
2007.
yeah,
Yeah, we were Are you talking about 06, 07, right?
607.
Yeah, they were terrible. 06, 07.
And Kobe had it. Kobe was done. And it's crazy because before we even talk about that, draft night, Kobe was traded to Charlotte. But they said, you know what? No, we'll trade him to the Lakers. Imagine if Kobe never was traded to the Lakers. I don't think they would have ever had they wouldn't have had Shaq because Lakers wouldn't have looked. Lakers wouldn't have looked good for Shaq because who else would he be going to play with? Robert Horry? Like, no.
They had Nick Van Exel back then, Eddie Jones. They had a couple players, but it wasn't all that attractive.
That they did have a couple players. I'm not saying like they have nobody, but I'm saying as if you look at the situation that he left from, I wouldn't go leave Penny Hardaway for Nick Van Exel. Now, of course, there was a couple personal things that went down, but that draft night trade really spearheaded a lot of stuff in the Kobe era. You know what I mean? I don't think, to be honest with you, I don't think there would be a Kobe era if he would have stayed with Charlotte, because I think
I don't know if I would have been a Lakers fan, man.
Exactly, and if you look at it, remember Kobe's rookie year didn't start off great. The man had 4 air balls straight, and then he even said his confidence was shot at that point, but it took his teammates and it took his coach to be like, hey, it is what it is. It just keeps firing, and now we know who Kobe ended with. So, but as a Kobe fan, Kobe getting traded on draft day, I think that affected the Magic forever. That affected, like I said, I don't think Shaq would have left. Or if he would have left, he wouldn't have left to go, or he wouldn't leave to go to the Lakers. It affected the Charlotte Hornets. I mean, have they ever recovered? Well, when they were the Bobcats, they were straight for a little bit. And when I say straight, as in they can make the playoffs, but they weren't like good. The Gerald Henderson. I mean Gerald
Wallace days.
And the Tyrese Thomas days. And then it affected the Lakers. I don't think the Lakers would. Well, they still, of course, would be a dynasty. I mean, instead of 16 championships, they'll have 10. But I mean, they'll have 9. But like, just tell me, how do you think that would have affected just draft night? We're gonna get back to the 2007, but how do you think draft night really affected the league?
Well, that draft was, as was a loaded draft, one of the best draft classes of all time.
Yeah.
And, I think Kobe getting traded, honestly, it affects everything like you just said. Like, I don't know how many people would be Lakers fans, especially me, because I grew up on Kobe. So that was my guy coming up. So I don't even know if I would have been a Hornets fan. Like, that doesn't even sound right. It's crazy to think about. I just don't know if I would have been a Hornets fan. I don't know. I just don't know. But I don't, obviously, this dynasty, the 3P with him and Shaq, that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And then
of course the dynasty, well, the 2P dynasty with Pau Gasol and
back to back.
Andrew Bynum, that wouldn't have happened. Like, people don't understand, man. And this is what that's how I preface by saying a lot of these trades or non-trade, because we're going to talk about non-trades as well. But a lot of these trades that didn't happen is based on pure stupidity or pure not seeing the hindsight. Like, how are you Charlotte and you don't see? Remember, he was a high school phenom, not as big as LeBron James was, but he was a high school phenom.
Yep.
The league back in the day was, pretty center centric, but you still needed you can't pass up on a guard to his I mean, he came out of high school, what, 6'6", 6'4"? Like, Kobe, now, yeah, he was skinny and he still needed to bulk up, but Kobe had the confidence. Kobe had the offense. Well, offense for, I guess, high school. But Kobe had the package. So how do you say to yourself? In fact, how do you say to yourself, you know what? We can pass on this, man. We'll send him to one of the greatest franchises of all time. Like, and then I'm looking now. This is 2000. This was 1998, right?
Nah, 96 draft.
96. That's what I meant. I'm trying to see who they traded to get. Like,
It
who
was
they.
Vlade Divac
Vlade
and
Divac.
yeah.
God damn it. Vlade goddamn Divac, who didn't blossom until he got to the Sacramento Kings. So it's like that trade really changed. Golly, man.
Yeah, that's a heist, man. Jerry West a genius for that.
Jerry West.
Front office back then.
Shit, look, Jerry West is about to be like we're not gonna really sit and talk about him, but just know that most of these trades that we're gonna talk about, maybe 5 or 6 trades or didn't, like, non-trades, he's in about 4 of them.
Jerry West is a genius.
Jerry West is a genius. He might be the greatest man that gets no props. Like, yeah, he might. I mean, he's a logo, and he didn't really like Jerry West to me. Not only is he the logo, but he cements his greatness from what he does off the court.
I totally agree.
Like, you see what he did with the Lakers. You see what he did with Golden State. You see what which we'll talk about too, because that's in the list. And you see what he's doing with the Clippers. Like,
yeah, he's doing his thing, man.
Like, Jerry West is a genius, bro. But let's get back to 2007. I laugh because, oh man, Kobe demanded a trade, which I understand. I wouldn't want to play with Smush Parker either, or Kwame Brown, and I'm a Wizards fan. Damn you, Michael Jordan. But he demands a trade, and what he asked for, it's pretty much, they wanted to trade Kobe. Well, Kobe wanted to get traded to the Bulls, and the Bulls really only had to give up Luau Deng and a draft pick and maybe a couple trash players. But the Bulls said, and I quote, "We as an organization did not want to give up on Luau Deng. We thought, we think his upside is unlimited." I mean, this is the same. All right. Now I looked at that and I said, you know what? Let me, because maybe I was missing something. Maybe now, yes, I understand Luau Deng, he's a great two-way player. I get that. Or was a great two-way player. But I was like, maybe let me go and see what his stats were in 2007.
Right, to try to make some sense of it.
To make some sense, because I was like, there's no way you can tell me at the time, 2007, because remember, that was the year Kobe, averaged 35?
No, 06, 07, he averaged 31. 05, 06 was 35.
Oh, God. So, like I said, there was no reason that a 31 point per game player, and in 2006, 2007, Luol Deng only averaged 18 points a game. Now, he did average pretty much a block a game, steal and a half a game, and 3 assists. Well, and 7 rebounds. So,
Solid.
But that's not 31 points a game.
Right. It's literally above average and then superstar. Like, it's an above average player and then superstar.
So you like, you know what? I think we're just gonna hold off. Now, what that did do though, and like I said, all these trades or non-trades are ripple effect. That we're gonna also talk about another trade, but that kept Kobe there, of course.
Mm-hmm.
The next year, I believe they got bounced out the first round.
We talking 07, 08?
7 08.
07, 08 is they went to the finals 07, 08. That's when they lost to Boston.
Yeah, that's when they lost to Boston. That's what I mean. I apologize.
And gotten embarrassed in game 6.
That was golly. They beat them for what, like 30, 40? But
it was like 39, I think.
So let's just talk about the Lakers on the Lakers point. The Lakers dodged a bullet, man. Because if you remember, like I said, the Lakers were garbage 2006, 2007.
I guess garbage to Lakers standards because they were 42 and 40. So I guess you could say garbage to Lakers standards.
Well, you're right, but I looked at it. The Lakers were 27th in defensive efficiency.
Oh yeah, you talking about the analytics? Oh yeah, for sure. I know those are horrible.
29th in offensive efficiency, and the only reason why they were 29th and not 30th is Kobe averaged 31. The second best player on that team. Want to guess who it was?
Lamar Odom gotta be.
Lamar Odom, who a couple years later kind of went off the rails. Pray for Lamar. What I'm saying is, Kobe wouldn't have 5 rings the Lakers wouldn't have went back to back. I don't know, because if you think about it, I don't even think Kobe would have had those 2 rings, because
it definitely doesn't happen.
Yeah, because you got to think about it. That means he would have to play Boston 4 times a year, and Boston's still loaded. Not to mention, following Boston was the Dwight Howard era in Orlando.
Yep.
And that was that's why it's funny how people always talk shit about Dwight, but there was an 8 to 10 year span where he was just unstoppable.
And the Magic were nice, man. The Magic had a nice team, man. Rashard Lewis, Hito Turkoglu. Magic were nice.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah, Petrus. They had Jameer Nelson. Yeah. Yo, they had some pieces.
And they had Morshane Gortat coming off the bench. So
yeah, they did have Gortat.
So I don't think they would have been good. And then they wouldn't have been bad. They wouldn't have been bad enough to draft the number 1 overall pick, which was Derrick Rose a couple years later. So that means Derrick Rose would have never been in there. Jimmy Butler might have, because he wasn't. I mean, he kind of fell in the draft, but
yeah,
that's pretty much if. What I'm saying is they wouldn't Kobe wanted to be traded, and he better. I know he thanks his lucky stars every freaking day that didn't happen, because yes, Kobe's reign of I won 3 straight with Shaq. Shaq won after he left, but I don't think Kobe would have ever won again.
Right. The narrative would have been Kobe couldn't win without Shaq, and Shaq clearly won without him. So the narrative would have been, Kobe only has 3 rings, and that's with Shaq.
Yes, and it's funny because, like I said, these situations happen so quick.
Absolutely.
Kobe's legacy, there wouldn't be no Mamba mentality. It would just been, oh, that's Kobe. You know what I'm saying? Don't get me wrong. Kobe probably would have put. You know what Kobe would have been? You know who Kobe would have been? Kobe would have been a steroids-induced Jamal Crawford if he would have won.
Oh no.
No, what I'm saying, I'm saying Jamal Crawford is known for what? Scoring.
Yeah.
But we don't think of Jamal Crawford as a winner. We just think of a dude that's 105 years old, but he looks like he's 24. A dude that every time he touches the ball, he's shooting the ball. I'm not saying he's a ball hog. He scores and he has handles. Like
Hmm.
when we talk about the pantheon of great shooting guards, Jamal Crawford, unless you're like a die-hard Jamal Crawford fan, which I don't think there is one in this world except his family
Unless
members.
unless in the Seattle area, because he's from Seattle, so I
Yeah.
guess.
But I think that's what Kobe would have ended. Like he would have had 3 rings. Of course, like you said, it would have been, oh, he can't win without Shaq. And then I'm already one that says that Shaq, and of course, we can talk about this later, but I think Shaq is a tad bit better than Kobe. But there wouldn't be no tad bit if Kobe wouldn't have won those 2 rings. I think it would
It
have
would
been
have
like,
been
yeah,
by a mile.
it
It
would
would
have
have
been
been
by a
by a mile.
mile. Because they would have been like I said, oh look, Shaq won with Kobe, and then Shaq goes and win with D Wade. So, and not to mention, I think then they would have had to play the Heat a couple more times than just 2. So
And you still got LeBron and Cleveland over there.
exactly.
And
So
oh man.
yeah, at that
Yeah,
time,
and the Pistons were still over there. Oh man.
exactly.
Yeah, you're
So
talking some really good teams.
yeah, so and that was the year. That
And the
was
Wizards were good too.
the Wizards they had Gilbert Arenas, Antoine Jameson, Brennan Haywood, and of course, like there might be laughable names now, but
I put
back
Kamal
then,
Butler too.
yeah, back then they kept giving LeBron, like they kept meeting the Cavaliers in the playoffs, and those would be 6 and 7 game series. So, and those were the days when the Eastern Conference was a lot stronger than the West. The West might have had like 3 or 4 strong teams, but the East, like
Uh-huh.
you just said, was loaded.
Yeah.
So, not to mention the Milwaukee Bucks had Michael Redd. They had it was just it's just he didn't want any of them problems in the East, and I think that would have like we just said that would have changed his legacy, but that also would have changed the legacy of the Bulls. I think the Bulls would have been a little better, but not as not like perennial champions. I don't think they wouldn't have been bad enough to get Derrick Rose, so that would have changed Derrick Rose's legacy wherever the hell he would have went. He wouldn't have been the hometown hero. He wouldn't have been all that, and he might not have been that.
Youngest MVP. Yep.
Yeah, and then you got to think about it. Kobe, look at all the coaches that Kobe succeeded with. Phil Jackson. Pretty laid back, the Zen master. That's it. Everybody else, Kobe couldn't stand. I don't know how Kobe would have been with Tom Thibodeau. Tom Thibodeau, who requires his big man to play 48 minutes a game, who even in blowouts, you still have to play your stars, which is exactly what happened to Derrick Rose, if you remember.
Yep.
I don't know if that would have worked for Kobe playing with Tom Thibodeau. So that's a trade that I know Lakers fans definitely think they're lucky stars that it didn't happen. And thank God every day that it didn't happen, or there would be no 2 jerseys hanging in the rafters. But on the other hand, that trade, which people really don't talk about, that trade helped Kobe a lot more than it helped the Lakers, if you think about it. Because I mean,
Yeah. Help
yeah,
both. But I would say, yeah, you're right. It helped Kobe more.
yeah. Because shoot, there wouldn't be no Mamba mentality if he only won 3. So, but speaking of help, what? Let me first of all, this is the Unpopular Podcast. I want to thank you guys for listening. Again, I have my boy Mike here, or I have Mike, host of the Unpopular. I mean, what in the world? Host of the Curry and the Pop podcast. Let's talk about another. I'm just get you upset. Let's just swing for the fences.
You're wildin', man.
Why are we talking about the Lakers? Let's talk about CP3. Now, of course, these trades aren't in order. We're just talking. We're talking. We're 2 dudes talking. But CP3, so I remember exactly where I was when this sort of trade went down. I
I
was
don't even know where I was.
I was at the court. I was at the gym. I was at because I lived in Waldorf, Maryland, yeah, back the 51st state. I lived in Waldorf, Maryland at the time, and I was at Thomas Stone High School gym. And I remember getting an alert to my phone that I was back on the I think iPhone 4 days, and it said December 8th, 2011. Chris Paul gets traded to the Lakers. In return, it's a three team deal.
Mm-hmm.
The Hornets get Goran Dragic. Remember Royce Young, the dude that was scared to fly, like he had.
Yeah, I remember him.
Imagine losing out on millions because you don't want to be flying. Lamar Odom, Luis Scola, and Kevin Martin would go to the New Orleans Hornets, or yeah, the Hornets at the time, and Pau Gasol would have went to the Rockets. I was like, dog, it's over. Because not to mention, and then you also remember there was definitely a wink deal because there was all that stuff going on with Dwight Howard. A lot of people thought a lot of people knew Dwight Howard was not was quickly following Chris Paul to the Lakers,
Mm-hmm.
which means it would have been Kobe Bryant. Instead of being Steve Nash, it would have been Chris Paul and Dwight Howard. This was December 8th. The trade was vetoed, and the actual trade that happened on December 14th was Chris Paul to the Clippers and the Hornets get Al Farouk Aminu, Austin Rivers, Eric Gordon, and Chris Kaman. The floor is yours, Mike.
Oh man. First, let me say, David Stern, this is all your fault. It seriously is. Oh man, I got clowned for this badly by
Oh.
my friends. Like they were like, one of my friends was like, "How does it feel that Chris Paul was on the Lakers for 24 hours?" And I was like, "Yo, like chill, like chill, like yo, this trade right here, it impacts and affects so much. Let's just say Chris Paul and the Lakers. Let's say hypothetically, Chris Paul ends up on the Lakers, and Kobe possibly gets his sixth ring. Dwight Howard comes.
Well, that ain't no
Dwight Howard comes as well.
That ain't no
Let's say Kobe gets his sixth ring.
Yeah.
And Kobe, I don't think Kobe gets injured. I don't think he tears his Achilles if this happens.
Yeah, because you remember that year, I remember Steve Nash dealt with a lot of injuries, and even Dwight Howard dealt with a back injury and a shoulder injury. Mm-hmm. So it's like Kobe definitely had to take on. Like, of course, they made the playoffs that year at like
Kobe was playing 40 plus a night.
41. I think they ended the year at 41-41. Which got them to the 8th seed, which then they got smacked by the Spurs in the playoffs. But
yeah, they got swept.
Yeah, and people give Dwight Howard a bad rap, but Dwight Howard, even though a lot of crap went down there, he was still balling when he wasn't hurt.
Okay, so they were. I just looked it up. They were 45-37.
Yeah. So.
And Mike Brown was the coach. I remember Mike Brown.
Hey, he won a championship.
And then Mike Brown was there. He got fired. And then Bernie I remember this year. Bernie Bickerstaff came in. He was interim. And then this was also the year where they were supposed to hire Phil Jackson. They backdoor him. Oh my God, bro. Bro. Jim Buss. I can't stand Jim Buss, man. He backdoors Phil. Yeah. And he hires Mike D'Antoni. Oh my.
Not only, and then I remember because Kobe came out and he didn't support Mike D'Antoni at first. They were like, "How do you feel?" Oh, he's the new coach. It is what it is. because everybody knew Phil Jackson wanted to come back. That's the only reason why he became the president of the Knicks. Like, he wanted to come back, but they backdoored him. But
Man,
and let me just break this down and see if you feel me. I'm gonna break down the four teams that are majorly affected. First, the Lakers. We just talked about it. I don't think Kobe would have got injured because Kobe wouldn't have had to do so much. He wouldn't have had to play 48, 45 minutes a game.
yeah, bro. I remember it was one game. Sorry to cut you off. They played Portland. It was towards the end of the season, and Kobe had played like 47 minutes. Put up a really nice stat line. They won it. Won a close game. Kobe played 47 minutes. I think the game after was the game he got hurt.
Yeah,
It was just crazy.
He got
against
hurt
Golden State.
And another game I'm gonna highlight. You remember the Toronto game where he had to be the fucking hero for
Yes.
he had to be the hero in the regular 48 minutes and the what's it called, overtime. I think that game he played like 48, 49 minutes. So Kobe wouldn't have got injured. I think he would have won multiple championships because remember, if you don't remember that trade, Chris Paul was going to be there for 3 years.
Yeah.
He would have been there for 3 years, and I don't think Dwight Howard didn't want to be there because he didn't want to be in the shadow of Kobe. However, you put Chris Paul, the man that makes DeAndre Jordan look like a max player, along with Dwight Howard, where of course Dwight Howard always wanted the ball, but you playing alongside Dwight Howard went to the championship, right? He went to the championship and realized, I gotta be that nigga for ever, or we're not winning. Imagine you are a solid. At the time, I would say he was a second option because to me, at the time, he was better than Chris Paul. But that was before the injuries. I don't think Dwight Howard would have got injured. Y'all wouldn't have had Steve Nash, so y'all wouldn't have had an old point guard. And again, Steve Nash, one of the greatest ever.
Yeah.
In fact, wasn't Steve Nash out the first half of the season?
I just remember Steve Nash barely playing.
I
So
remember
to answer your
Steve-
question, I just remember he barely played.
I remember Steve.
That's
Nash
all I remember.
Howard was on a Sports Illustrated cover saying, "We're back." I said, "Back from where?"
Stop it.
I just played last year. I think y'all would have won a couple rings, and I think there would have been that also affected Kobe's legacy because there would have been a serious. If he would have say he won 6, 7 rings, there would have been a serious conversation of, is he better than Michael Jordan?
Mm-hmm.
Because every time we talk about Michael Jordan, what's the first they go? 6 for 6. What if we would have been like Kobe was, I don't know, 7 for 9? You know what I mean?
Yep.
And also, so that's just the Lakers. That's the Lakers. Let's talk about the Hornets. The Hornets would have got, like I said, Goran Dragic, who at the time, the Suns had too many point guards. It's crazy.
Yeah, Goran Dragic. That's when they had IT, right? And was it Eric Bledsoe?
Eric Bledsoe. That's crazy how the Suns had too many point guards. Now they don't have one. Gordon Dragic was actually the best point guard there at the time because, of course, IT was coming off the bench. Eric Bledsoe, we didn't really know what he was. Gordon Dragic, Royce Young. I don't think that would have moved the needle. Lamar Odom was still solid at the time in 2011. This was before, he went off the rails and everything, but Lamar Odom was still good. Luis Scola, people forget.
Wow, I used to love Luis Scola when he was on the Rockets.
Third best player on the Rockets with Yao Ming and what's his name? T-Mac. And then
I used to love. I used to use them in 2K back then, bro.
Yeah. I ain't gonna hold you. Luis Scola in 2K and Rockets. Ron Artest.
Ron Artest was there. They had
Steve Blake. Man. Steve Blake in that ugly shot, but he be making and Kent.
Hey, Steve Blake, my guy, man.
And they had Kevin Martin, Kevin Martin was like he was the poor man's Monte Ellis at the time. He was just microwave city. He'll give you 31 game, he'll give you like 10 the next. But he was still a solid scorer. They ended up, like I said, with Al Farouk Aminu, who can't shoot to save his life. Austin Rivers, who actually got traded earlier that season. Eric Gordon, who it turned out good for them there. And Chris Kaman, who Chris Kaman's career highlight was sleeping on the bench for the Lakers when, wasn't that the game all y'all fouled out?
Yeah, we didn't have that many players that game, and I think Steve Nash was injured, but he ended up suiting up just because they needed somebody else to come in.
4 people
That
fouled
game
out.
was crazy.
And
Yeah,
Chris
that
Kaman
was
sleep on the
ridiculous.
bench. I remember. Oh God, Chris. So that team wasn't good, to say the least. Yeah, you had Eric Gordon, but because the trade didn't go down, the team wasn't as good as it could be, which in turn got them Anthony Davis. Now, of course, we know what's happening to Anthony Davis now, but still. And let's talk about the Rockets. That was the year Yao Ming was definitely about to retire because the year prior he only played 5 games due to injury. Of course, we all know about his feet problems and everything. You match up. Oh, and that means T-Mac wouldn't have had to do as much as he had to do, which in turn, of course, aggravated his back injuries. You put T-Mac alongside Pau Gasol, boy, that's a dynamic duo. Now, I don't know if it would be as strong as Kobe and Pau, but T-Mac. Remember, even Kobe said a couple weeks ago in that interview for ESPN that he wished he would have played with T-Mac. Like T-Mac was, I don't know if you consider him a shooting guard or small forward, but he was like top 5 back in the day.
T-Mac was that dude, man.
T-Mac. I put that on the episode. T-Mac, if it wasn't for injury, T-Mac would be one of the greatest. But Pau Gasol on the Rockets with Ron Artest, with Steve Blake, with Shane Battier at the time, if you don't remember, with T-Mac. Like, that would have been a squad, bruh. And then let's talk about the team that it affected the most. The Clippers. I don't think we would know who DeAndre Jordan was if it wasn't for Chris Paul.
Mm-hmm.
While I think he would have been great, I don't think Blake Griffin would have been as good as he was without Chris Paul. And the Clippers have been trash since the NBA started. So, I mean, you had that one year with Darius Miles and Quentin Richardson and all them, but
oh yeah, Lamar Odom used to be on the Clippers.
he was on there for like 3 minutes, and then he was like, "Yeah, get me the hell out of here. I'm too good for this team," which he was. But the Clippers, like, not only did it help the Clippers, but I think that helped Chris Paul too. It helped and hurt Chris Paul because Chris Paul was known for empty stats. He was known for the dude to be getting, averaging 15, 16 assists a game. Remember there was a legit point guard battle between him and Darren Williams at the time.
Yeah.
But everybody looked at Chris Paul as, I mean, he's doing all this, but they're not winning anything. Like the Hornets were either making to the playoffs and getting swept first round. That's when they had Tyson Chandler, or they just sucked. So this trade would have made it would have affected the Magic. It would have affected the Boston Celtics, who beat you, who were still, it would have affected LeBron. Like this trade, man, that's crazy. David Stern, all right, so David Stern leaves with nothing else or left with nothing else. We know he affected this trade. He wink might have affected Patrick Ewing going to the Knicks. And he single-handedly ruined Dwight Howard's legacy. So it's just, do you think, all right, So imagine if Kobe would have won 7 rings. How do you think the narrative would have changed on him?
Oh man, people already say Kobe's the GOAT. You know, crazy people, but ho- people would be definitely saying Kobe's the GOAT.
Yeah.
And the narrative would have been 7 rings, bruh. 7 rings in the modern era. Like that's crazy.
Not to
Cause
mention just. Oh, I'm sorry. What was that?
he would have won. Now that's 4 without Shaq. That would have been 4 rings without Shaq.
And there
So
would and there would have been a huge discussion did Shaq need Kobe? Because people remember there was like a really quick discussion. Did Shaq need a superstar? Because if you think about it, Shaq won a championship with Kobe, and then Shaq won a championship with a young and crazy D Wade. And they're like, that kind of got put to bed, when like Shaq is dominant, but that would have affected Shaq's legacy too. Because then we would have been looking at Shaq like, Shaq, how the hell couldn't you do that? Because then you remember back then, Shaq just started jumping, like he just did a whack a mole. Like, what team am I going to next? I remember looking up and he was on the Celtics.
yeah, Shaq
So,
was on the Suns, the Cavs, the Celtics. Yeah, he was all over.
um, and then I remember, I don't know, for people that haven't, go check it out. I remember putting an All NBA injury team. An honorable mention.
Yeah.
An honorable mention was Chris Paul. Chris Paul was always like either almost there or he was in prime position to get to at least a championship. And either it was injury or him just playing like trash really affected that. Imagine if we're looking at Chris Paul now and saying, "Oh, well, he's a two-time or he's a champion or a two-time champion." And this was that trade was on like the brink of, or the beginning of the super team era. So we wouldn't be looking at Chris Paul as like, oh well, he's great, but he can never get it done in the end. It would have been like, hey, Chris Paul's a champion,
Fact.
which would have been a huge discussion. Which would have been a bigger discussion, as in, where does Chris Paul land on the greatest point guards of all time? Because when we talk about it now, and I'm not just saying it because of bias, but we have Magic Johnson, Stockton, even Steph Curry, and people always say Steph Curry compared to Chris Paul. One thing, or the multiple things that Steph Curry has that Chris Paul doesn't, is rings and MVPs. So that really would have changed everything for CP3. And then we look at Dwight
Hmm.
Howard. What's the Dwight Howard all jokes all the time? Dwight Howard never takes it seriously. You can't really say that if you have a ring or two. And
Yeah.
he would have been a huge part of that, because before the injury, like I said, there was an 8 to 10 year span where he was the best best center in the league, and it was
Undeniably.
undeniable.
Undeniably.
A
Wasn't even
country,
close.
exactly. Now, of course, there was those. Oh, what about Andrew Bynum? No, get the Andrew Bynum was not even close to Dwight. So at their peaks. So what I'm saying is,
I would just say on the offensive end, sorry to cut you. On the offensive end, Andrew Bonner was more skilled, but nobody was touching Dwight, bro. No,
exactly.
nobody.
So it's just that, and they, to me, they fit so they would. I mean, now yeah, Kobe would have had to relinquish the ball a little bit, which we had never seen Kobe do. But then on the contrary, Kobe never played with a ball dominant point guard. Kobe never. The one time Kobe played with a ball dominant point guard was Team USA. And you see what the hell happened there. So Kobe never played with a ball dominant. So I think, and of course Kobe was aging. So I think Kobe would have been able to, relinquish the ball a little bit. And Dwight Howard, you would have to fall in line, my G. But I think it would have been easier for Dwight to fall in line if he was seen, oh shit, well, we winning. You know what I mean? Like, I can't,
You winning. I'm catching lobs from
Captain Lives.
CP3.
Like, and that's adding years to my career, because, like I said, he doesn't have to bang as much as he did in Orlando. So, damn, that would have changed everything.
Yeah, I think you would have just seen like Kobe just like getting to his spots, post fadeaway, post fadeaway.
Now, do I think
Oh
Kobe
man.
still would have averaged 27, 28, 29 points? Yes. But would they? I think Kobe was the most inefficient scorer ever, but he scored. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that as a jab. I'm saying Kobe would take 30, 37 shots a game. Now he'll still average 30, but I'm just saying like Kobe took a lot of shots. And that was just Kobe. There was a point I remember, they were always saying like, damn, Kobe's a ball hog. But there was a certain point where, hey, Kobe's great. That's just Kobe. You know what I mean? That's what Kobe gonna do. And just imagine. And just imagine with the Rockets, man, because even then the Rockets were like on the cusp. You put a veteran and a savvy player like Pau Gasol along with T-Mac, like.
Oh yeah, so about T-Mac, I was just looking, and we're talking 2011, 2012. T-Mac was on the Pistons in 2010, 2011. I don't know if you remember when T-Mac was on the Pistons coming off the bench. And then 2011, 2012, he was on the Hawks. So T-Mac's last year with Houston was he was on Houston and he got traded to the Knicks. I don't know if you remember that either.
Dude, I don't.
But I just finished looking it up.
So I
So
remember.
T-Mac was on the Knicks in 2009, 2010.
Looking at T-Mac on the Hawks was like looking at
Yo, I forgot all about that.
Hakeem the Dream Olajuwon on the Toronto Raptors, or looking at Patrick Ewing on the Magic. It just
Shaq on the Celtics.
Shaq on the Celtics. Man, get out. All right. I think we're done with that trade. That's as we clearly see that trade was.
Yeah, can we please be done? Please be done with that. I don't want to talk about it anymore.
All right. Well, let's talk about it. Let's talk about a quick one. And I'm not saying quick as this trade to me, or this non-trade that didn't happen, has as much of a ripple effect as the CP3 one, and that was Golden State needed a big man. Golden State had two ball dominant guards, which was Steph Curry and Monte Ellis. The original trade would have been Steph Curry and like a pick or something for Andrew Bogut. But the medical doctors for Milwaukee didn't think that Steph Curry would be able to pass the physical with his ankles, because of course what people like to forget was Steph Curry had probably one of the weakest ankles of all time before.
Yeah, they were very, very bad.
Hell, I remember he had surgery on his ankles. I've heard of it, but I've never heard of somebody twisting an ankle 2 days later having surgery, season-ending surgery. And this was like his second year. So I'm like, damn, well, I remember what he was at Davidson, but I guess I remember I was a big fan of Curry and Davidson, but I'm like, hey, damn, well, he might not ever be the same. Clearly he wasn't. He was a lot better. But
I was the same way, man.
Yeah, but so the trade would have been Andrew Bogut for Curry. Now, that means that, oh man, it would have been Monte Ellis, Klay Thompson. No, it wouldn't have even been Klay Thompson, because remember, the Warriors sucked after that trade because Monte Ellis was their best player at the time.
Yeah, I don't even know if all of that happens.
Yeah, so then that means they wouldn't have been in the position to get what's his name? Klay Thompson. That means they probably wouldn't have been smart enough to get they couldn't get a player like, they would not have been able to get a player like Draymond Green, because Monte Ellis was so ball dominant. That means Draymond Green wouldn't have been as good as he was. That means they wouldn't, because remember, Andre Iguodala said one main reason why he went to Golden State was because of Steph Curry and how free they play. That wouldn't have been the case, because a lot of people in the organization loved Monte, but they understood Monte doesn't really pass the ball too much. Damn, like that non-trade for Curry. Like imagine Curry on the Bucks. And the thing is, I don't think Curry would have been as good because it also matters where you land and where you stay. Like we just said, I don't think Kobe would have been as good if he went to Charlotte. I don't think Steph Curry would have been that good if he would have went to the Bucks. Because who the hell the Bucks have? They had Michael Redd, or Michael Redd was like pretty much on his way out. Like
Oh yeah, on the Bucks, that's the Brandon Jennings
Brandon
days.
Jennings stay and OJ Mayo. So Curry definitely wouldn't have been getting the ball because they loved Brandon Jennings. And it also helped that I think his second game he dropped 55 on Curry.
Yeah, on the Warriors. Yep.
So
It was one of his early games.
So Curry wouldn't have had 3 rings. The Golden State Warriors that we think of now would most definitely wouldn't have been, because then there wouldn't have been KD definitely wouldn't have went, because one, I don't think they would have been good enough to even have 73-9 wins. They wouldn't have been good enough to even get to the Western Conference Finals to play OKC. They wouldn't have been good enough to win in 2015. Like that trade that didn't happen really affected everything. Well, not everything, but a lot that we see now. And then even look at and it kind of killed what's his name's career. Look at Monte Ellis' career. In fact,
Yeah, he's not even in the league anymore.
Without looking up, when's the last time Monte Ellis played?
I want to say, without looking up, I want to say 2 years ago.
Monte Ellis ain't been in the league.
Either 2 or 3 years. 2 or 3 years ago.
I didn't see no press saying Monte Ellis has been retired. I didn't see that.
Because I think his last team was like the Pacers or something.
It was the Pacers.
I think it was the Pacers.
His last game I remember ever seeing him is Klay Thompson dropping 61 on them boys. And that was the game where they said, "Oh, Monte Ellis has come back. We want to let them know that they made the right decision. Keeping Steph Curry. Klay Thompson, because Paul George's on that team too. Like, what happened to him?
Yeah.
And Monte felt like he just went it was crazy. It was crazy. But there was that Curry wouldn't have been. I don't think we. To be honest with you, I think Curry would have just been another player. Yeah, he can shoot. He might have been a Kyle Korver maybe, but Curry wouldn't have got the ball. Curry would have had the same problem with the point guard and ball, stuff that he dealt with in Golden State. Instead of it being a point guard battle between him and Monte Ellis, it would have been him, Brandon Jennings. Now he would have had it's it's funny because we have 2 more trades and non-trades to talk about, but it's just funny how the NBA is affected by things that either do or do not happen completely off the court. Like just imagine that. Imagine if Curry was not on the Golden State Warriors right now. Where would he be? Where would Golden State be? Would they be light years ahead of, like Joe Lacob wants to say? They could, like, where would Russell Westbrook be right now? Because if it wasn't for Curry, I don't think Russell Westbrook would be playing without Paul George. I mean, playing without Kevin Durant. Where would Paul George be right now? That ain't gonna work.
With the Lakers.
With the Lakers.
Probably would be.
Like, oh man, that made so. And remember.
And you gotta also think Chris Paul probably wouldn't be on the Rockets because the Rockets made that trade just to compete. Just with the Warriors.
With the Warriors. Chris Paul would have probably still been on the Clippers, collecting $250 million a year. Blake Griffin probably would have still been on the Clippers. DeAndre Jordan would have probably still been on the Clippers. And if you remember, Klay Thompson was one step out the door because they're about to trade his ass for Kevin Love.
Kevin Love, yep.
Remember, back to the guru, David West said, no, we're not doing, Jerry West said, we're not doing that, bro. Like, everybody in management was about to trade this man Clay. Jerry West was the only one that said no. Now look, we still got the Splash Brothers. Like it's damn, that is crazy. That is crazy. Jerry West saved Golden State. This trade saved Golden State because Monte Ellis was, and remember, Monte Ellis was not a good point guard. He was a good shooting guard, but he was never a good point guard.
Facts.
We saw that with Dallas, where they had to put JJ Barea at the 1 and Monte Ellis at the 2. It's just, man, it's wild. It's wild. But hey, we got a Golden State dynasty out of it, I guess. And
Yeah.
they're still going. Spoiler alert, I don't think Kevin Durant's leaving after next year. Now the year after, maybe, but I think you got one. He'll be one of the first player ever to win 4 straight if he stays. So, but you know, so a couple weeks ago was the 8-year anniversary of the trade of Carmelo Anthony trade to New York. That people don't really understand until hindsight how much that at the time helped, I guess, the Knicks, but it hurt the Knicks and it really helped Denver in a major way.
Yeah.
So Denver got Wilson Chandler, Fat Raymond Felton, Danilo Gallinari, Timofey Mozgov, and a 2014 first-round pick, which turned out to be Nurkic, that plays for Portland right now. New York got Melo, Chauncey Billups, Sheldon Williams, Anthony Carter. You remember Anthony Carter?
Yeah, I remember him, that ball point guard. Yeah, I remember him.
And Ronaldo Balkman. You remember him? In fact, last time we saw
I remember Ronaldo Balkman. He got a
fighting overseas.
That doesn't surprise me. I didn't even see that, but that doesn't surprise me.
He was wild. So let me tell you how much this affected. I think now, of course, you give me your input, but the year before this, if you don't remember, Mark Stoudemire was on that historic run where he scored like 14, 30 point games. The Knicks were, while the Knicks weren't they weren't never, except for back in the 70s, they were never playoff, like perennial playoff teams. They had solid pieces, and Carmelo Anthony thought he was going to a team with at least 8.9, 8.5, 9 out of 10 Amari Stoudemire, and he was going home, I guess, quote unquote. He didn't anticipate Amari Stoudemire the next year just blowing his back out.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't anticipate his knees going out. He didn't anticipate that they would be good and they would be fan, but he didn't understand that the Knicks. Well, I guess he understood, but he didn't think anything of it really. The Knicks fans don't care about what happens in the regular season. They want playoffs. They want championships because they haven't seen one. He also didn't understand that Chauncey Billups was old at that point. Chauncey Billups,
super old.
Anthony Carter was not a freaking solid point guard. Sheldon Williams, I think he's known now for marrying some hip hop chick, and Ronaldo Balkman was wild. And that also sent David Lee to the Warriors, who is a champion now.
Oh yeah.
Now, and I talk about this because while this had a huge effect on Melo's career, because this was the point where Melo wasn't really known for just wanting the money. Melo was known for a great scorer who, remember, the talk around Melo was he never had help in Denver. Like he had J.R. Smith, but other than that, he had the 1 year with AI where they went to the Western Conference Finals. No,
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, not with AI, with Chauncey Billups, so they went to the Western Conference Finals. But
Then they go to conference finals with AI too.
I think they went to the second round.
Okay.
They went to the Western Conference Finals with what's his name, Chauncey Billups, and they got smacked by the Lakers. But that was a battle. It was a smacking, but it was a battle. You put Melo in New York. Now, of course, New York fans loved it. It's Melo. You remember he dropped what 60, 64 points. He had a couple great games. And of course, they went to the playoffs and faced off against the Heat, where they got smacked there. Because it just didn't stand a chance. But this trade set New York back so much, and this is why when we talk about trades and non-trades, why I was always I was cautious about the Lakers giving up all those pieces for Anthony Davis. Now, yes, Anthony Davis is a lot better than Carmelo Anthony at the time, but look at how much this set back New York.
Mm-hmm.
The Lakers wouldn't have had. I'm not gonna say wouldn't have had a future. They're definitely, if that would have trade would have went down, that would have been a win now mode for real. But they wouldn't have had no like they would have gave up what 8 draft picks and 5 players. That's 13 players.
Too much.
Too much. And that's like you give up Wilson Chandler, who was solid, Fat Raymond Felton. I'm never gonna Fat Raymond Felton. Danilo Gallinari, who's still solid now. Timothy Mozgov, who's a champion, and pretty much Joseph Nurkic, who is solid for the Portland Trailblazers right now. And it brings me to my second point. This isn't the first time, and this isn't the first trade where we really saw Melo wanted to get out of Denver as bad as possible. Which is stupid. And I'm gonna say it's stupid because of this. If he would have
I was going to ask you why was he so pressed to leave Denver? Like they were consistently good. Like I could see if they were horrible, but like they weren't bad.
Yeah, but he wanted the bigger market.
I get that too, but
because if you remember, he wanted to get as far away from Kobe as possible because the Lakers smacked all hell out of him all the time. He wanted to the bigger market because, of course, Denver. Nobody really watched Denver back in the day, other than Melo and J.R. Smith hopping over Gary Neal. Like it doesn't. They don't. They didn't have too many. Like they had Birdman, and that's about it. Like Denver is a hard. Even today, Denver's a hard team. How good they are today, it's still true. It's a hard team to recruit players to go there. It's always cold.
For sure, that's facts. You can't really get players to go there unless it's via trade.
Exactly, and he wanted
drafting. So yeah,
and he wanted a bigger market. The thing that I look at Melo like nigga, what were you thinking? Was all he had to do was wait until the off season. If he would have played out the season, he would have been a free agent, which means he could have went to the New York Knicks, and they wouldn't have to gut their whole team for him, which is stupid on the Knicks' part. Because everybody and their mama, now of course it could have been the same situation with Paul George, but this would have been the first time we've seen it. Everybody and their mama knew he wanted to go to the Knicks. Why don't you just wait it out so you can keep a player like Danilo Gallinari? You can keep a player like Wilson Chandler to come off the bench.
Keep them draft picks too.
You can keep those draft picks, which turned into Nurkic. You can, and what's even worse was Chauncey Billups and Anthony Carter, the 2 point guards that you needed, were free agents after the end of the year, which they walked.
Yeah, because Chauncey Billups went to the Clippers, right?
Yes. And Anthony Carter went to and one. So what I'm saying, it was so like Melo, his impatientness really effed up his future in the Knicks, and then effed up the Knicks' future. Hell, the Knicks ain't been good since what, the first 2 years or first year that Melo was there. Because that's the year they
Yeah,
went to the
I
playoffs.
think it was first couple of years.
Yeah, that's the year they went to the playoffs and got smacked by Braun and them. Like
Yeah.
ever since then, they've been pulling for strings. Now they're hoping and praying that their two max spots is going to be a player like KD and Kyrie, but they mess around and get Tobias Harris and DeMarcus Cousins. Then what you gonna do then? Or Chris Middleton and Jimmy Butler. Then what you gonna do then? So this really messed. Like if Melo would have been Melo and the Knicks, because it's not just the Knicks had to pull the trigger too. If Melo and the Knicks would have been patient, they wouldn't have ruined their future. And you got any thoughts on that, bro?
What, on the Knicks'
Yeah.
future?
Just
I mean,
on Melo, and we see this sometimes with players. Like we saw the patient, like how patient the Hornets, I mean the Pelicans are being now with Anthony Davis, but just how if they would have been patient, the Knicks wouldn't have been as trash as they are now. You know what I mean?
yeah, for sure. They definitely, would have had more picks. I mean, pretty much. I mean, you pretty much summed it up well, honestly, bro. I don't. I mean, I don't know, man. Like the Knicks, like this definitely set them back because it didn't pan out at all. I mean, they luckily got Porzingis, and then now he's gone.
He's gone.
Like after all of this mess, they luckily got him, and Phil Jackson drafted him. They got, I don't know, man. It's terrible. I feel bad for the Knicks, man,
Oh
but then I
man.
don't because they could have just waited for Melo. They literally could have just waited, and it would have been able to surround him with more talent, I guess. But
They could have waited for Melo. They could have not. They could have not been Phil Jackson sloppy seconds, which then in turn ruined Melo's stock. They could have. Remember, Melo didn't like all the attention going to Jeremy Lin during Lin's sanity.
yeah,
So
and he didn't even want the Knicks to re-sign Jeremy Lin.
so they started cutting Jeremy Lin's minutes because Melo wasn't liking it. Melo didn't like the stardom and the star power not going to him. So, and that brings me to my next point. And the New York Knicks Melo was the first Melo that we really saw him really only care about the money. And it goes into juncture with the last trade that we'll talk about. Or last, yeah, well, it's sort of a trade. Last trade that we talk about. So as we know, Braun free agency went to New York, which then in turn, I mean not New York, Miami, which then in turn they traded for Chris Paul, not Chris Paul, Chris Bosh, and they had
Yeah,
D Wade already. If you remember, Chris Bosh was not supposed to be the third person. It was supposed to be Melo. It was supposed to be. They were supposed to sign, or what's the name? LeBron James was supposed to go there because they already had D Wade. Then shortly after that, Melo was supposed to lift his no trade clause and go to Miami. The thing is, he would have to take a pay cut because remember the first year they all took a pay cut.
yeah, they all took pay cuts.
D Wade had to restructure his deal to get less money. LeBron James took less money, and Chris Bosh took less money because they wanted a ring. Melo wasn't with that. So Melo, if you remember, that was his contract year. They re-upped and gave him another contract.
Yeah, he signed the max.
He signed the max and reinforced the no trade clause, which in turn sends Chris Bosh to the Heat instead of Melo. Imagine if it was Melo, LeBron James, and D Wade on the Miami Heat. And it doesn't stop there. If you also remember, the Bulls just got Pau Gasol. The Bulls then shifted their focus to Melo. That
Wait,
team
was
would
it
have
Pau Gasol? Was that the Pau Gasol year or the Carlos Boozer year? I think it was
that.
Carlos Boozer.
No, it was. It was Carlos Boozer. I'm sorry. No, because remember Carlos Boozer was on the team, but they were gonna get Pau Gasol because their Lakers were this close to trading Pau Gasol. They were gonna get Pau Gasol and Carmelo Anthony. So it would have been. Because I remember putting this lineup on. This kind of shows my age. Facebook. It would have been D Rose at point, Jimmy Butler at the shooting guard. Power forward would have been Melo. No, small forward would have been Melo. Power forward would have been Chris Carlos Boozer, and it would have been Pau Gasol at the 5. You're
So
telling me
what year are we talking? Because Pau Gasol's first year with Chicago was 2014.
that's the year I'm talking about. No,
Okay.
that's so. And so what I'm saying is, those are two instances where Melo clearly. You telling me that team can't go toe to toe with Miami Heat? That remember Derrick Rose, yeah, he was battling injury, but think about it. Derrick Rose, Jimmy Butler, Melo, Carlos Boozer at the time, where he wasn't trashed at that time, and Pau Gasol. You telling me that team can't go up against wouldn't go up against the Heat? That team couldn't beat anybody. Not to mention coming off the bench, you had the infamous Luau Deng. You also had
The infamous.
you also had Ronnie Brewer, who was a defender. You had young Taj Gibson. Like, what I'm saying is, Melo's actions not only messed up the future of a franchise with the Knicks. We're still hoping and praying to get somebody. But he ruined his own legacy. Not ruined. He altered his own legacy. There were 3 instances where he could have gone to the better team or he could have waited and the team would have still been good. And what did he do? He took the money. Or he was being impatient and said, no, get me out now. And now look. Now Melo isn't even in the league. He's hoping that a team picks him up. He's hoping that the Lakers pick him up. But if you really look at it, and I was talking to my boy about this, the Melo doesn't fit with any team.
Yeah, you're right.
He doesn't fit with a rebuilding team because he wants the ball, so that really stunts the growth of the young players. He doesn't fit with a win now team, as we saw with the Rockets and we saw with OKC. He's not good with. He wants to pretty much be the star still, and that's definitely not the case. It's like Melo. Oh man, I understand that the NBA is a business, and I understand that many players try to get as much money as possible before they leave, right? But coming in the 2003 draft, while it was known that LeBron James was the best player, Melo was the most accomplished player out of that draft. Of course, he just won a national championship, and he was. I think remember there was a real debate if him or LeBron should have won Rookie of the Year because he was hooping in Denver.
Yeah, Melo was nice.
Braves Melo was undefeated, so it's just that trade or non-trade really messed up. Like, really altered the way that we look at Melo. Really altered the way that we look at the league because think about it. Say the big three never. Say Chris Bosh never went to the big three. Chris Bosh was on the fringe of, oh man, like Chris Bosh was on that Chris Paul syndrome. Like, you're good, but he was battling injuries, and we didn't know. Like, he was just winning in Toronto, but it wasn't. He wasn't really doing much.
Yeah, they would just go to the playoffs and get bounced.
LeBron was losing to the Celtics every year, and D Wade, he was facing injury. He was battling injuries, and D Wade was just D Wade. He was a great player, but he wasn't the Miami. He wasn't good enough to win no championship. Like, now, of course, we all know how the big three. The big three ended, and we all know the era that it ushered. Because of course, now you have super teams like the Golden State Warriors, but Melo really could have been a part of that, and he was just on the wrong side of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Melo could have been a multiple time champion, at least a one-time champion. Melo's never been to the finals. Think about that. In 2003, Darko has a championship. Braun has 3 championships. D Wade has 3 championships. Chris Bosh has 2 championships. Melo, who coming into that draft was the best offensive player by a country mile, isn't even in the league right now.
Sad, man.
It
really
just how differently 1 or 2 situations can change the entire league. Like we said, if Kobe would have went to the Bulls, if Chris Paul that trade was never vetoed, if they sent Steph Curry instead of Monte Ellis, if they sent Klay Thompson for Kevin Love, if Melo would have been smart, if this shows, like I said, that the league not only is a players' league, because we're all talking about players that could have really shifted the paradox of what we know, but if it wasn't for a couple of things, there would be no Splash Brothers. There would be no, oh, Melo's not a winner. All he cares about is money. There would be no, Kobe could be the GOAT. There would be no, damn, Chris Paul can never win a championship. Neither can Dwight Howard. There wouldn't be no, damn, like Golden State is a dynasty because of the Steph Curry, who's a 2-time MVP. There would be none of that.
Yeah, still be KD in OKC.
KD in OKC
or somewhere else.
And that's the case. And I'm not going to talk about it because, of course, it was kind of over. But one trade I could have talked about was the Rockets trade for James Harden.
Mm-hmm.
And how that affected the entire. It's crazy how. OKC. And last thing I'm gonna say before I let you go. Appreciate your time, by the way, man.
Oh yeah, no problem, bro. No problem. This was long overdue, bro.
Yeah, the last thing I'm gonna say is, you had 3 MVPs and Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, and James Harden, and you arguably have the worst one of the 3 because you wanted to quote unquote stay loyal and you saw a higher upside with Serge Ibaka.
And they paid Kendrick Perkins too.
They paid Kendrick Perkins. And if it wasn't for $3 million, not total, not like in the span of like 3 a year, no, $3 million total.
$3 million, period.
You broke up 3 MVPs. One who might win back to back. Like I said, man, it's crazy how situations happen. Damn, bro. Now I don't think they would be MVP caliber. Like they all wouldn't win MVPs playing together, and of course it'd be different. But James Harden's come out and said he wanted to stay with OKC. So I definitely think they would have won a championship or 2.
Mm-hmm.
Which then would have altered the NBA even more. But we're not gonna get into that. Again, man, this is the Unpopular Podcast. I want to thank my man Mike, man. Again, like you said, this has been long overdue, bro. Tell the people where they can find you at, man.
Oh yeah, man. Oh, it was no problem coming on, bro. But you can find me on Twitter and Instagram. Be like Mike. It's an X instead of the I on Mike, so belikemxke. And you can also follow my other Instagram, which is Curryinthepotpost. And then my podcast is called Curry in the Pot. You can find me on iTunes podcast and SoundCloud. I gotta get on Stitcher and Google Play and all that good stuff like Jalen, but Spotify too. I gotta get on that soon. But yeah, you can find me Curry in the Pot. I do episodes Pretty much weekly. Lately I've been doing some collaborations. I had Jalen on a couple of times, but yeah, man. Curry in the pot is what I do. You can come and come welcome to my world on live from the 301. You can come check me out over there. Yeah, man. But I do mailbag episodes, round table episodes. But yeah, weekly episodes, man. You can catch me, man.
Again, I want to thank this. Y'all want to. I'm gonna put all this information in the bio, of course. But the funniest thing, if you look at Mike goes crazy when the Lakers lose.
Man,
I remember.
Hey, you watched that game last night?
Oh my God. Like Mike, oh man, like the funniest thing. Now, of course, I'm not gonna hold y'all, but the funniest thing, go back to Mike's post when the Lakers lost to the Hawks.
Man,
that's all I'm gonna say about that. That's all I'm gonna say.
I was tweeting in all caps.
Oh my God.
The Hawks.
I DM'd Mike and he wasn't having none of it.
The Hawks.
Before we get to the game of the week, I just want to take time to, recognize, because I didn't even see this until I did some research, but recognize U.S. cyclist Kelly Catlin. I hope I'm saying her name correctly or her last name correctly. If not, I apologize. But she was a U.S. track cyclist who helped the U.S. women's pursuit team win silver in the Rio Games 2016. She was found dead on Friday in California at age 23. I don't know how she was, found dead. Now, they said she killed herself. And I'm just taking time. I know this is sad. I know this is quite morbid. But I just want to take time and send out my condolences to the family. Suicide is tough, man. Suicide is tough. I understand that, sometimes it's hard to make it through the day for some people. And again, I want to shed light on this because I haven't heard a lot of people talk about this. Maybe out of the respects of the family. I haven't really heard ESPN report this. So again, I want to send my condolences to the family. And rest in peace, Kelly Catlin, age 23. And she was a U.S. silver medal winner. So I'm going to have a moment of silence for her. And now that we're back, let's get to the game of the week.
Game blouses.
I call game.
Expect the game.
It's game time. Play no games. It's the game of the week.
Play the game. I ain't about to play no games.
So this is a big week for Golden State. While, of course, we know that they're pretty much sleepwalking. They just lost last night to the Suns at home. And we know that they're pretty much waiting for the playoffs. This is a big week for Golden State because not only do they play Houston, who has pretty much had their number the last few times they played, or last couple of times they played them actually, but they also play OKC on Saturday, and that is my game of the week. Golden State at OKC at 8:30 on ABC. And this is why it's my game of the week. This has so many implications for so many reasons. Golden State, because they lost yesterday, they're pretty much neck and neck with Denver for the number 1 seed. Now, before, I usually didn't think that Golden State needed the number 1 seed, but as this season has showed that they need as much going their way as possible. Not saying that they aren't good, or not saying that they need it, but I think they definitely want home court this year. And Denver has an easier schedule. Well, they have a tough schedule, but And Golden State has an easier schedule, but as we've seen, Golden State, they just lost to the Suns. They can lose to anybody. And then you look at OKC. From slots 3 to 6 are pretty much jockeying for position. OKC, Portland, Utah, and Houston. Not saying that's the order, but they're all pretty much jockeying for third seed to 5th or 6th. OKC, you're pretty much measuring how good you are going against Golden State. And 2, you don't want to go in there the first people you play, or you don't want to see Golden State in the second round. Or you don't want to be the 4th seed and have to play Utah. You have to play Houston in the second round. That's just not what you want to do. So this game has a lot on Saturday again. This game has a lot. Saturday, March 16th. This game has a lot of implications. Do I think this matters as much to Golden State as it does OKC? No. Now, don't get me wrong. This game is very important, especially with this loss to yesterday against the Suns. Oh man. But I think just like how they last Saturday, I believe, or Sunday, no, Friday. On Friday when Golden State beat Denver, I think they're going to get up for Houston. I also think they're going to get up for OKC. Now, of course, we have to see. Kevin Durant did twist his ankle yesterday, so we're going to see how he plays. So that's a big factor. But that's my game of the week. March 16th, Saturday, March 16th, OKC at Golden State, 8:30 p.m. at ABC. And there you have it, man. I wanna thank Mike Curry for coming on the podcast. I want to thank everybody that's listening. This is episode 37 of the Unpopular Podcast. I feel like I'm getting better. You know, every week I'm pinpointing something to do. I'm not trying to say but a lot in this episode. I think I did a pretty good job. Again, this is the Unpopular Podcast, and I want to thank you guys. And until next time, much love.